Good morning again, boys and girls. Once again, I hope all is well and everybody, you and your families, are safe. This morning, boys and girls, we're going to start a new domain in math. So last week, of course, it was measurement and data. As you see, this week the domain is geometry. Yay for geometry, okay? So the standard that we're going to deal with on today and most of this week is 4.G.A.1. Draw points, line segments, raise, angles, and you see I highlighted in blue the angles we're going to be talking about is right angles, acute angles, and obtuse angles, and parallel and perpendicular lines. So that's our standard pretty much for this week. So our objective for today is this. By the end of the lesson, I can identify and describe characteristics of points, lines, line segments, rays, and angles. So that's our objective. By the end of the lesson, I can identify and describe characteristics of points, lines, line segments, rays, and angles. So, boys and girls, before we start today's lesson, I want you all to take a look at this solve and share. Now, of course, you know that we are in a distant learning environment. So, I'm going to read this solve and share, boys and girls, as if you all are in the classroom. So, once I read this, boys and girls, you all going to pause the video and you're going to try to solve it. And then, but what I'm going to do, then I'm just going to take a few minutes as if you've done that, and then I'm going to move forward. So what is it that we're trying to understand? Okay, it says, if a clock shows it is 3 o'clock, how could you describe the smaller angle made by the two hands of the clock? If a clock shows it is 3 o'clock, how could you describe the smaller angle made by the two hands of the clock? Solve this problem any way you choose. Why do we keep saying that? Because what's our motto? There's always more than one way to skin a cat in math. And you see, boys and girls, we have the clock diagram at the end there just to help you as a guide or a tool. So at this point, boys and girls, what you all would do, you would pause and try to share that and solve. Now what I'm going to do, boys and girls, is I'm going to move forward as if you all have already done that. So what I'm going to do, boys and girls, and what you all need to do is to take out a sheet of paper, and there's a few things that I'm going to ask you all to do in your virtual distance environments. Okay. The first thing I want you to do on your notebook paper, boys and girls, so let's pretend this is your notebook paper. Of course, that's the left side of your paper there, right? I want everybody to put a dot somewhere on their paper. Do that for me. Everybody put a dot on their paper. And as you all are doing that, boys and girls, I'm going to be doing the same thing. Okay. So raise your hands if you all have done exactly like I did. Very, very good. All right, so now, this dot, boys and girls, is our first vocabulary word, and I want you to put the word point, because that's going to be our first vocabulary word for geometry. And boys and girls, when you put that point, you can label it any letter that you choose. I'm just going to put the letter M, so that's point M, but you all can put it point A through Z. That's whatever you choose to do, you can do that. All right. Now, the second thing I want you to do is to put another dot somewhere on your paper. And when you do that, I want you to connect the two dots. Okay? And when you do that, boys and girls, try to use, if you have a ruler to connect them, use a ruler as a straight edge. If you have a book, use a book. I should have used my yardstick. I didn't use it, but my line looks pretty straight there for the, excuse me, for the most part. So now we have 2 points. We have point M and we have point Z. So when you have 2 endpoints like shown, boys and girls, endpoint here and in with M, endpoint Z, that creates a new vocabulary word. And that word is line segment. What's a line segment? It always has 2 endpoints. Which also is a beginning. It has a beginning and end. That's what those 2 dots mean, that you have a beginning and an end. And once again, like I said, boys and girls, your line segment doesn't have to be called line segment MZ. If I wanted to change it, I could say line segment RQ. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, now, somewhere else on your paper, I'm going to erase this. I want you to draw a line somewhere, anywhere on that paper, with arrows at the end, and put a whole bunch of dots or points, as we now use our mathematical terms, along that line with the arrows. And while you're doing, I'm going to do the same. If you've done that, good. So now what you see, boys and girls, you see a line. It doesn't just have endpoints, but it has 2 arrows going in opposite directions. That's because it's no longer now a line segment. Now we call this another vocabulary word. This is what's called a line. And if I choose to, I can say this is line N-O. So what does that mean? The line extends or continues in both directions forever. that's why you have the two arrows there going in both ways. That means the lines go continues in opposite directions forever without stopping. So, another vocabulary word, line. Okay? Now, somewhere else on your paper, I want you to make a line, boys and girls, but on one end, the line continues, but on the other end of the line, it has an end point. See if you can do that. And while you're doing it, I'm going to do it. Now let's see, hopefully, boys and girls, this is what you came up with. Now, so we have a line that extends in one direction forever. That's what that arrow means, boys and girls. It continues and it continues, it doesn't stop. But in the other direction, it has an end point. And that's the point here, here, and here. That means that's where it starts, that's where it stops. So it looks a little different than a line because the arrow doesn't, doesn't continue both directions. On one direction it does, yes, but on the other direction it has a stopping point. So now we have a new vocabulary word. So it's no longer called a line, but this is called a ray. And what is a ray? It extends or continues in one direction but has an end point in the other direction. Okay. Did you get that, boys and girls? Okay. Now, I'm going to stop it for a second for another segment.